Welcome to Perspectives On, where we're giving the world a voice. We are a faith-based social justice forum where individuals give their perspectives on various topics. It's an opportunity to express their viewpoint, their stance, and their angle on justice issues affecting the community and globally. Each episode features guests presenting their perspective on things like climate change, the church, urban farming, and food insecurity, all through a unique faith lens. Come check us out. Give us your perspective. And on the eighth day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer. This quote was taken from the late Paul Harvey's 1978 creation motif, which was a tribute, as he was paying a tribute to farmers and painting a picture, Webster's definition of farming as the business of growing crops and raising livestock. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Perspective On, where we're giving the world a voice. I'm Lyra Lane, your host. In the world of farming, the pandemic has proved to be a worthy and powerful catalyst, changing how we navigate the nation's food supply. The USDA reports that food insecurity has doubled and in some instances, tripled from 11% in 2018 to between 22 and 33% as of April of this year. Higher rates than any point since data collection began. This means that a significant number of American households are without reliable access to a sufficient amount of quality food, which is indeed a justice issue. The COVID-19 pandemic has produced disruptions in the nation's food chain, shifting the farming landscape. And out of necessity, many communities have been forced from dependency on what seems to be a highly fragile, highly tenuous, industrialized corporate food system to the small-scale, community-focused farms representing an understated link in the food chain, a link that has responded quickly to the local community needs. So tonight, I've invited three farmers they're really unique farmers. And these farmers will talk about this paradigm shift and engage in dialogue around food security, what it means for the small farming community, and how we can seize this opportunity for a more favorable infrastructure for the coming times. And I'll let you guys introduce yourself. Miss Celeste, why don't you start out? Just talk about, who you are and what you do and the contribution that you're making in this community.
Peace and blessings, everyone. My name is Celeste Lomax, and I am at the Brownsville Urban Food Forest, where there is 7.1 acres of land that we are turning into an orchard of nothing but food, fruits, nuts, berries, vegetables, medicinal herbs. We have a little bit of everything over here, from pawpaws to figs to hibiscus to ginger to thyme, lavender. I mean, you name it, we have it. I've been in the holistic health and wellness business for 10 years now. I started off in this property volunteering, and I got hired by Trees of Atlanta to steward the land. It's been a work in progress, but it's been a blessing all in one. I use the herbs to make medicinal medicine with. And so my main goal right now is to use this forest to make medicinal herbs to heal our people in our community and to also provide food for our community at the same time. This used to be a food desert, but it no longer is anymore. Peace and blessings.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Atlanta, it's amazing how, for Atlanta to be the metropolis that it is, for us to be in a food desert. Still many areas that are basically a food desert. Let's see, who wants to go first? Mr. Brown, why don't you introduce yourself and talk about who you are and give us some background. Toot your horn.
My name is Herb Brown. I'm a part of Browntown Farms in Warfield, Virginia. We're about an hour south of Richmond. Um, we grow fruit and vegetables right now. In the past, we historically grew tobacco. So when the tobacco market kind of went down and my family members got a tobacco, we switched over to vegetables. Right now, we're currently in strawberry season. The season's coming to an end. We had a lot of rain today, so we had to see how things turn out over the next few days. Um,
Okay, it looks like we lost Mr. Brown. Uh, Farmer Fredo, why don't you introduce who you are and just talk about what's going on with you in Albany?
How you doing, world? Again, this is Fernando Jackson, aka Farmer Fredo. I am the executive director for a C3 nonprofit based out of Albany, Georgia, called Flint River Fresh. We're into our fourth year of existence. Our focus is to increase access to fresh, affordable food by teaching people how to grow food, but also connecting people with small scale and family farms in our area. Our core work is centered around establishing urban farms, community gardens that are also utilized for training and again teaching people how to grow food, but then also establishing what we like to call pop-up farm stands, where we establish relationships with community leaders, organizations to bring fresh produce from local farmers into these areas. So we minimize the distance of food by putting it directly in the areas where people live and where they work. And we also are the sister organization for the Flint River Saltwater Conservation District, which is a federal program that deals with conserving our natural resources and working with farmers to make sure that they're doing the right thing to preserve land and to protect the earth. And so that's who I am, and that's what I do.
Awesome. Well, I certainly appreciate. I see your community appreciates the work that you do. Mr. Brown, why don't you finish your introduction? Can you hear
Yeah, so like I said, we Browntown Farms. We in Warfield, Virginia. We grow produce. This is currently strawberry season. Had a lot of rain today, so the crop is probably about to go downhill, and we probably about to close out strawberry season within the next week. Farm been in the family since 1908. Historically, we grew tobacco. We converted it to vegetables and fruit, and we enjoy supplying local customers with healthy options to eat.
All right, that's some good stuff. And so I know you said earlier that you did get a lot of rain today, and that's kind of a shame that you have to end your strawberry season. Is that early? Or you say you're going to end it this coming week? Is that early for the strawberry season?
Yeah, it is. We started early this year on the strawberries. We started on April the 16th, which is the earliest we've ever started. So we coming on the downhill side of the season anyway, but we're hoping to get a decent harvest in the next week or so. So we'll see what the rain looks like and how much is damaged out there. And, we'll keep going.
Hey, I guess that's the life of a farmer. Well, let's jump right into our questions. Now we've all been watching the news, and and so what I'm looking for is for you guys to talk from your perspective, as I'm sure you're dialoguing with other farmers and other persons in the community. Um, who would you say just kind of give your perspective on the impact of COVID-19 on the small in terms of food security? What kind of impacts have you been seeing on the community as a result of the pandemic? Um, any one of you can chime in on that one.
Well, like from my standpoint, it's been like once the shelter in place orders start coming in, and people just really concerned about not going out to like the grocery stores. We really saw like a high demand for people wanting fresh local produce, but being able to have it delivered. And so we had like a really big boom during like the end of March, kind of going into like April, where we might have been distributing like 500 or 600 boxes of fresh produce to people that just like, I don't want to go outside. We know who you are, Farmer Fredo. We know your relationships with other farmers. And so it's really been a blessing. But then also we were kind of caught because again, we try to create these urban farms and community garden sites. And here in Dougherty County, we had 14 schools that had, well, we had our garden cafeteria program, and all of that stuff shut down. So you had corn, you had carrots and not carrots in the ground, collards in the ground that the kids had planted, stuff in the greenhouse, and all that stuff had to just come to a halt because the children weren't able to tend to the crops. And so we did have what I would call like some loss of produce that we couldn't harvest because you went from having access to 100 or 300 kids to where you might just have 3 people trying to tend to about 3.5 acres of combined of urban farmland and trying to figure out how to grow and how to keep the crops growing because there was still a need. We still had people looking for like fresh produce and stuff to eat. So it was always, I always felt like I was always on the edge about the fall or about the fly. And I still feel like that to the day.
Wow. Wow. And when we first started this, as I spoke to my farmer friends, I was thinking, hey, everybody's gonna need something to eat. So I just felt like there was just gonna be, this rise in business for the small farmers. But I could see, based on your experience, that it's been kind of bittersweet. Well, it's kind of both. There were some pluses and minuses to it all. Anybody else have anything they want to offer?
Yeah, my on our farm, demand has been high. People like Fredo said, people don't want to go to the grocery store, so we see a lot of people come out. We had a very successful season with strawberries due to the demand. We couldn't really advertise the strawberries because as fast as we pick them and grade them, people were there buying them. So it's been a good thing for us demand. Coronavirus is a terrible thing to happen. I think it's allowing people to get closer to the land and really appreciate local farms now. So hopefully this movement continues and hopefully people will continue to support local.
Yes. Now, Miss Celeste, I would imagine that you had a very interesting experience also because I know
Yes.
when we visited on last summer, one of the things that I spoke about was one of the concerns rather that we had was the way people were kind of coming in and picking the fruit and it wasn't quite ready for harvest. I would imagine that you had some interesting things to happen as a result. So let's talk about
Yes, man. We have actually made some changes since you've been here last because of
that.
that.
Okay.
I have not been as lucky as these gentlemen to produce as much food here. As this food forest is new, it has to have time for the food to grow. And we did a live video before where I was telling people that the food was free, but I did tell them that the food had to grow, but they didn't hear the food had to grow part. They only heard the free food part. So people were harvesting and killing a lot of things before they can even really start growing. So we have harvesting guidelines now. We put up a ballot where the cars can't just come in and start harvesting. I mean, this is a public park now, so anybody can really come here. But we really encourage people to please wait until someone is on the property to help you harvest. I will be giving classes this year on showing people how to harvest, along with the benefits of the medicinal herbs that we're growing here. This is for the community, but at the same time, things have to grow. We can't just come in and start snatching stuff out of these gardens that we've worked so hard to have things growing for people out in the public to just come and start taking things because this is your community. This is your garden. So you have to help us keep things growing. And we have great neighbors. I call them the community garden watchers that let us know, hey, we got 5D coming out of the car with 5 bags. They just let us know what's going on. We have cameras now to try to protect some of the things that we're growing because in
Cameras?
due time, you're not going to have to come in and just take stuff. It'll be here to give it to you to harvest whenever we have harvest.
Wow, that's interesting. That's interesting. So, did you see? I mean, were people trying to still come anyway? You know, even though you had all of those
Oh,
lists.
they are still coming anyway. Yes, ma'am. As a matter of fact, I was just here last week Saturday, and someone was taking the greens and picking them while I was over there maintenance the herbs, and I saw them, and I came over and I asked them, can they please not harvest until Wednesdays? Wednesdays is when we harvest. I gave them the times. I asked them did they want anything, and I gave them some other things that I was harvesting over here in the herb garden. I never want to turn anyone away. Anyone that comes on this property while I'm here, you will leave with something,
Right.
because it's not about me. It's about us. It's about we. This is our stuff,
So
Yeah, yeah.
that's probably a very unique circumstance from having a. I think Atlanta is probably one of two in the country. I think for food forests, and so it's a really new concept, and so it's going to be interesting to see how food is when we say it's open and you can come, how does that look now, especially in the
Yes,
coast?
we are finding out how that looks. So we're trying. We're a work in progress.
So speaking of that, okay, so now that we've talked about our how each farm, how each of you guys is really operating, I think the biggest conversation among consumers right now is the impact on food prices. And I would like to get you all's perspective on, how the pandemic has affected food prices and how, where do we see that going in terms of how does that impact what you guys are doing as well? Herb, why don't you start out with that one? Can you hear us, Herb?
Well, yeah, I can hear you. I had a little pause there.
Oh,
But far as the prices of food, I mean, I would say it goes back to supply and demand. Normally when demand is short, the prices rise. So we've been seeing an increase in food prices. We've been seeing shortage of food, especially meats in the grocery store. So I think everybody's definitely feeling the effects. Now I guess going to the grocery store is not taken for granted. It's like people just want to go to the grocery store to get whatever they need, and it's kind of a game. You got to get there at the right time,
yeah.
and you got to go and get what you have to get. So it's definitely a challenge, and it's definitely different.
Yeah, they keep telling me make sure I come when the truck comes.
Right.
So it's interesting. We have one question. And I guess this question is for either. It's for the three of you. What crops are you currently farming? And I guess this may be for Farmer Fredo. Had you considered establishing a delivery service?
Yeah, so right now I'm in the process of where we have field peas. So that's like our cream 40, our pink eye peas, okra. We have sweet corn, tomatoes, peaches, blackberries, blueberries that are like readily available. And we do a program that like I said before, it's like a pre-made box program. And so we're really trying to emphasize in our area throughout the state, trying to encourage people to support local Georgia grown farmers. So we have what's called like a Georgia grown box that's just emphasized just locally to support local farmers. And what it does, it allows for us to collaborate with the collective of different farmers that are close to us. So that way, how Herb was talking about, with the rain might hit hard at another farmer's farm, at someone else's farm, they might not have gotten as much rain, but they still have similar crops. And so we're able to like share the wealth, share the exposure by just being in collaboration. Because I'm down in Dougherty County where I'm at. I mean, I can go 10 miles every direction and come across a 25 to 300 acre like family farm that's been around similar to her, that's been around for hundreds of years that we can work with. And then also what we try to do when we are getting ready to put stuff into the ground, we try to do like little videos for like your backyard grower or your community gardener to show them this is how you plant a sweet potato. And kind of we're talking sweet potato now as a fall crop, but we start planting it like now. So that was 30, no, those 110 days, people know to get ready. And we show people how to prepare the land and, how to fertilize and how to, just pest management and things like that for, because one thing that we did notice with COVID, there was an increase in people wanting to learn how to grow food for themselves
Right.
and knowing what to do, because like I don't know what to do. I need to buy tomato seeds, or I'm going to the big box store, and is it time to plant this or time to plant this? So
Right.
that was like another thing that we found ourselves doing, becoming educators in addition to being like your everyday farmer, So and that created a more of a community model. So we were able to buy transplants. As farmers, we get 1,000 plants at a time, but we're able to share that wealth with our community. And so, like this past week, I'm helping everybody plant sweet potatoes over the next 2 weeks.
Awesome. That is so awesome. Um, we had another question. A resource allocation issue. Can anybody speak on a resource allocation issue when it comes to distributing the food? I know, Farmer Fredo, you talked a little bit earlier about the whole delivery system. Did you find in your community that you all had any issues with how or not being able to supply the demand? In other words, at least that's
Well, well,
go ahead.
like on our end, like the biggest hang up, and I think this is with most areas, is the logistics. And so if you have 1,000 people, all of a sudden, like last week, you only had 20 people wanting a product. All of a sudden with COVID, you had like 20,000 people wanted the same product. And so how do you get things to like the certain zip codes? Because like you can have one city that has a zip code and you just think, oh, it's a couple blocks. But here in the Southwest Georgia, that zip code could cover like a 20-mile area, right? And you have people stand on dirt roads, and so that was the logistic. But then also how to preserve the produce that people were receiving. So how do you store it? How do you process it? All those were factors as well, because you could do something like deliver to somebody's house, but they never knew how to can beans, or they had the tomatoes sitting out on the shelf and it was 75 degrees and it got getting soft. So there was a lot of different ins and outs. But the thing that we had a resource in the state of Georgia. I'm pretty sure that everywhere else, but we have of Georgia. They had a lot of material that talked about food preservation, that talked about what to do when you receive, or they even had recipes on how to prepare dishes. And then also, if you can get 20,000 pounds of collard greens, where are you going to store that for the people? Because you can't just put that on the back of a pickup truck. You can't just we're not the grocery store, so we don't have those means. So we have to make use of coolers and use of box fans going on, just whatever we could do for the people.
Hey, but I'm sure it was totally appreciated. And this entire pandemic has been for on a whole lot of different levels about problem solving. Because there's not a precedence for it. Nothing had never happened before. And in any form of we had a form of it in the flu pandemic, but that was almost 100 years ago. And so there's not a precedent. So when these issues come up in the life of farming and food distribution and the food chain, especially more specifically, then it's a new thing. So we have to come up. There's a lot of problem solving that's going on. We also had someone who asked the question. They wanted to know, Farmer Fredo, what is the name of the farm? And so you represent the Flint River Fresh, which is a nonprofit organization, right?
Right. Yes, right.
Right.
And so, yeah, so Flavor Refresh, we're a nonprofit, but within our organization, like I said earlier, we have in Southwest Georgia, we have like multiple farms that we have relationship with. Some of them, in particular, so we have like Southwest Georgia Project, which is really tied into mobilizing Black farmers throughout the area and teaching them. We also have the Federation of Southern Cooperative that work with minority farmers across a non-state sort of region. And then with our tie into the Flint River Soil Water Conservation District, we have like a database of like 40 small family farms that we also reach out to. And one of the things that we have in the state of Georgia is our Georgia Farm Bureau that identifies what we have a thing called UPIC farms. So these are actually farms that are like on 50 acres and they grow a ton of crops, and people actually show up and pay, $9 to get a 5-gallon bucket and put as much stuff as you can inside of those areas. And so this is just part of like a model that we really are doing. And then the other thing, like I do at my community garden spaces, and it's kind of like what Celeste was talking about, but we have like certain harvest days. So we try to have on our community garden spaces, which are like 1 acre plots, every month to have some major produce coming off that we could give to the people in need surrounding those urban spaces, but then also just to be able to set up a farm stand that allows for local farmers to come to and have an outlet for the produce and stuff that they're growing, because we still have a disconnect from the growers to as part of this thing that happened prior to the pandemic. We had grocery stores that were closing. And so on the poor side of town, the closest grocery store is like a 5-mile drive. And then we have entire cities that don't have grocery stores at all. And so food deserts, that's a strong word, but I like to show people I have entire cities that don't have access to fresh food in Southwest Georgia. And
Right,
the only way they can get the food is if they learn how to grow it for themselves and maximize the vacant lots, the empty spaces that are close to them, and transform them into what, like I like to say, food hubs or food destinations for the community to be able to get. I mean, yeah. You put up the stats for Southwest Georgia, it's pretty rough.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm getting a lot of feedback and flack from my friends in academia who they don't really um, they don't really use the word food desert anymore. Yeah, they like to say food apartheid.
Yeah,
And so,
systematic.
right, yeah, right. So, I mean, it's been explained to me about why that is, but but either way it goes, it's a hard. People are having a hard time when they have to drive 15, 20 or more minutes just to get to a grocery store, get something to eat. And I can see that problem being in the rural community, especially where you are from, Alfredo, and even where you are, Mr. Brown, as well. But in a city like Atlanta, it's really it's a problem here, and luckily the our mayor is in the process. We're getting started with the food forest, and that's a great thing. And so thank you for that information. Now we do have one other question. Now somebody wanted to know. Uh, Now, Farmer Fredo, you getting a lot of questions tonight, and that's good. You seem to be the man. You seem to be the most popular person on the broadcast tonight. But somebody wants to know. Let's see. Do people think it's harder to grow their own food and are surprised to learn it's easier than they believed? And are there preconceived notions about the difficulty of growing food? And anybody can feel free to chime in on that also.
I want to give some other voices opportunity because I can't talk. Herb, no, I can get down. So
Hey man, you're one for knowledge, brother.
yeah. Herb, no, I can get down, but I believe in equal spaces. So if anybody else want to just interject on that, and I could definitely tag team. So I just want to make sure all voices are equal and we all bring knowledge to the table.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You can go ahead though. Go ahead.
And I see Celeste trying to talk, but Celeste, you have yourself muted.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was muted. I used to think farming was really hard and growing food was really hard, but I think it really farming is like us, human beings, you know. In order to grow food, they need the same thing our bodies need: water, nutrition, food, love, vitamin D. I mean, so as long as you're giving them those things, there's no way that things cannot grow. I mean, we are connectors to the earth. That is our spiritual being. The mother, the dirt, is the connection to it. And I believe this COVID-19 thing is something to get us closer to what we need, where we need to be right now, more spiritual and more connected to the earth. You feel me?
Yes, ma'am. Now, can you explain your use of the word food desert?
Food deserts, yes, because a lot of people don't, they don't like to use that word, but it is what it is. I mean, if you start growing in a place where people have to travel 10 to 15 minutes to go to a store, like where this is, no, it's not a food desert anymore. But when it was put here, yes, it was a food desert. So I still use it because I don't want people to forget how this area used to be. Let's not forget where we were. That way you can appreciate what you have. Once you realize where you were and where we're going to and what you have in your community. So the reason why I use the food deserts is because of the fact that I live in this area. And if I didn't have a car, I would have to catch a bus. I would have to call Lyft. I would have to call Uber just to get some food. So now we are partnering with Lyft, as a matter of fact, to give people $2 rides so they can get here and pick up the food.
That's
But I
right.
would like to get with my brothers right here, because once this food really starts producing, I need to learn how to produce with my people. Like right now, I registered with the USDA. I registered with EBT to learn how to take EBT cards from my people. Because if we're doing this for our people, we have to set up so that when our people come to get our food, they can get it. SNAP and EBT is the way that a lot of our low income people eat. So I'm getting ready for them because I love my people and my community. So I had to do what I had to do for them.
Absolutely. Now, I did get a question, and I did get a question about the explanation what the in academia why they don't like to use that word food desert. The notion is that in a desert, even though the desert is characteristically dry and hot and it's dry, there's still life in the desert. And so they don't like to use the word desert because in a desert there's still life, there's still food, there's still an ecosystem working in a desert. Now that's in academia, but for us lay people who are in academia in that context, then food doesn't
Yeah.
work. But I just wanted to elaborate because I did have a question about that. We had one person say, "If you love the earth will love you back," and that is absolutely that is absolutely
Amen.
that is absolutely true. Now, just moving on, because I mean, this is great conversation, and I'm loving the responses. We talked about how the pandemic will affect food prices, and we've seen that. We see what's going on in the grocery stores. We see that people can't find meat, people can't find, and when they do find it, then the price is a little. But we know that the pandemic has struck. Like the meat industry, has paralyzed the meat industry across the country. So meat prices are going to go up, and if you can find it, and so the impact is basically going to be the same across the board. And I'm thinking that as farmers, you guys will see. I mean, is there? I know that you're seeing a rise in people who want to come and buy your product because they don't want to go to the grocery store. But have you looked at what the prices are versus what you're charging? Farmer Fredo, I don't know if you're charging anything. I don't know how that's working in your context. But talk a little bit about how you think in the long term the prices are going to affect the average consumer and how that's going to impact what you guys do in your own context.
Well, like for me, I've been doing a lot of studying of a gentleman by the name of Booker T. Watley. He was a farmer, 1980s. He basically created that concept that we now know as a CSA. And so what I've been looking at is like knowing that the prices are going to change and we have like input costs, whether it's seed, whether it's gas money, whether it's fertilizing, but you also have it where people want to have ownership of where their food comes from. So it's like an opportunity to create what I like to devise as a neighborhood farm model where I'm from in Plains, Georgia, where a lot of small farmers or black farmers kind of all stayed within walking distance of each other, and they had acres of land that surrounded their homes. And so they would actually create a farming operation off of that. And with that farming operation, they were able to feed their families, but create enterprise. And so what I'm looking at in terms of cost, I think the costs are always going to go up or down just because the biggest thing that we need is fuel, right? And so if I got to gas my tractor or my tiller, if I need to keep my reefer unit running and things like that, that's a huge cost to it. And so, but if I could find a way that the community sees value in what I'm doing and willing to become an investor by making like a monthly contribution to the farming operation in exchange for being able to harvest throughout the year over 20 different varieties of fruits and vegetables, but then also having the community be part of like the workforce to help with harvesting, to help with weeding. Because like one of my biggest costs is hiring people to pick, or hiring people to assemble my boxes, or hiring people to do construction on my raised garden boxes. But if I'm able to show the community how to do it for themselves, then this is true self-sustainability, and it's also creating enterprise for our community where everybody has equal weight in the success of our people and the love of our people. I love the comment about loving the earth, and being a farmer is really about just expressing love day in and day out to your neighbors. Like we do this, like it's hot, but we still out here like, making it work. Right?
Well, okay, so let me ask you, Herb Brown. Let me ask you, what do you think then? Just kind of, give us give us your perspective on this, how you think in the long term this COVID-19. We talked about, I think Farmer Fredo talked about, the cost to him, but also how will this affect the overall U.S. production, just in your opinion, U.S. food production, agriculture, fishing, aquaculture, all those supply chains in those markets in the long run, in your opinion?
It's really hard to say, but I think,
Oh,
we're at a tough point in American agriculture right now. Especially if you're talking about grain prices or cattle prices in some of the bigger markets that the U.S. Is responsible for producing. The prices have really not increased, but the inputs are rising. So, I feel like that prices of food, produce, I feel like it's going to rise because the inputs are constantly rising. Over the years, I mean, every single input that we have has pretty much went up. So, in terms of like a small produce operation like myself, I feel like our prices will have to increase to be able to stay in business. Now, when we talk about grain farming or cattle farming, those prices kind of go up and down, and they kind of, high sometimes and they go back low. But on the local food market, I think prices will increase. I think food is finally going to have value. Food is going to be associated as something a little bit more valuable than what it was before, and people are going to be willing to pay for good food because there's value in eating local, it's value in eating fresh, it's healthier, and it's better for you. And people are going to associate that with longevity in their life. So I think overall prices are going to go up for vegetables and produce.
Okay, all right. And it sounds like I'm thinking, and I'm not a farmer. I'm just, just thinking about, just business and the world market and how trade is being operated both nationally and globally. I would imagine we're going to see an increase in prices across the board, including not just in livestock, but produce, as you say. But livestock, dairy products, all those things are gonna because you're gonna have a greater demand. I would think. Uh, does anybody else have anything they want to add? From Fredo, I know you you got a mouth. Okay, just
I mean, but just like in retrospect, like Herb say, I mean, it's just part of like the American way. It's just part of like the world. Things just like increase in value. But my prayer is that it can never be so too far out of reach that the everyday person can't get it. And that's really like the importance of
Hi.
the urban like food forest. That's like the importance of converting community spaces into areas where food can be grown. That's within walking distance for people to have it, because we don't want food to be so far out of reach. Like, even though like my fear always with Atlanta, and we see this, is that if something happens on 285 where food can't get within that perimeter, man, you guys are screwed. Um,
right.
because it's just nothing but buildings and everything, right? And so, what can we do just to ensure that within a 1 mile block radius that there is like enough food growing on an acre and a half piece of property, that people at least have the essentials of like how to eat. And I think another thing that's going to change with this pandemic is what we consume. So I'm always
Yes.
excited to hear more about like plant-based eating. I'm more excited to hear about how to use herbs for medicinal reasons and things like that, because of the pandemic, that was one of the biggest pushes where people wanted fresh, they wanted local, because they knew it had more of a better, higher nutritional content. And so we could provide that to people and show them how to eat healthier. And that to me is if we can keep that pathway going, so that generation that's out there, like my son's age, on and so forth, that are in love with the chicken spots, um, introduce them to eat just more like fruits and vegetables with their meals, and make it a everyday thing.
Yes.
Yes. So it's amazing with the way with the impact that COVID-19 has had on the meat industry. It is amazing that we're looking at ways to get protein from other from other parts of the food chain. Uh, and it's going to be interesting also to see how that impacts what people choose to grow. Also, um, because especially in the food forest, for example, people. I know that you all have vegetables, and I've seen the tomatoes. But I'm wondering if like black beans or other types of beans where you might get different sources of protein. Have y'all looked at what do you do? How do you do the plan for what you
Well,
are going to plant?
well, me myself, I tend more to the herbs, the medicinal herbs, orchard part of the food forest, and we have our own garden manager, an assistant manager, and they have their own team that work the garden. But like I'm out here now, and I'm gonna see if you can go this way with it. You probably can't see because next time you come out, I'll be able to show you more. But we have the basil. They have beans down here, snap peas, squash, collard greens, kale, arugula, garlic. Um. Oh yeah. You can walk around. Let's see what else we have. Cabbage, basil. We have sage, oregano, rosemary. A lot of this is also in the herb garden. We have lavender, catnip. Um, we have comfrey. We have mullein plant. We have lettuce hyssop. I just planted some burdock root. And a lot of these herbs are healing herbs, and that's what I love most about them. A lot of the medicines that I give away are for free, and I have my own garden at home also, so it's not just here that I grow, and I also help other farmers grow. Because that's what it's all about. It's a community thing. It's not just the I or me thing. It's a we thing. Because we are all one love, right? And these are my babies. We have mint and lemon balm over here. Mint and lemon balm. We have catnip over here. Then over here we have, these are called Hugo Mounts. We have oregano, thyme, crawling thyme, lavender, calendula. I have turmeric over here. I mean, I have some of everything to heal you with, baby.
So, so I see you have that. I didn't know that they had that great a variety of herbs. That's awesome because in the coming days, I think in the coming months, we're gonna really see a difference in I think Farmer Fredo alluded to it earlier. You know what we eat, how we eat, and so those herbs are gonna be very important. Um,
Yes.
uh, and I know, Herb, I know you guys have you're ending the strawberry season. Like, is there a plan? Is there any plan to say, for instance, you grow something else? If we just to supply the demand, or how is that impacting what you guys are doing?
I'm sorry, my volume kind of went out. Let me put my headphones in. I don't know what's happened there.
Okay, Mama Plato. Also, are you guys at first I can't say the word. It's at the Flint River Fresh. Are you guys growing yourselves, or how do you manage this? Yeah.
Well, we do both. And part of like what I saw that we want to focus in on our community garden spaces was making sure that people had what we call staple crops, stuff that could be harvested and that can last for a while. So in a space where I would, maybe grow, like just like stuff that are just unique. I'm using that space to grow like potatoes. Like it's been a while that I would say that I put forth like on a community garden plot an eighth of an acre just to grow sweet potatoes. But I want to make sure that I could grow a crop that has longevity when harvested in case there is a food shortage so people have like something to eat, something to consume. And then also what we've been looking at is like how to establish more fruit orchards and throughout the city in different vacant lots. So therefore, if people are looking for something to eat, they can just go grab it off like the fruit tree and just have access to it. So we kind of been a shift in let's grow stuff that people can that store well, that people can or preserve, and things like that. So in case we're not talking about the end of days, but we'll just make sure that people will have what they're used to eating, but know how to preserve it for long. And just kind of what my granny did. Like now I think about my grandma's pantry and seeing the peaches in a jar, the squash in a jar, the green beans in a jar. I didn't know what that was. But now I understand. Like that was better than any canned food that you can get because they made that preserve themselves. So we really been focusing in on how to grow your staples and providing that for people, but then also teaching them how to grow the unique stuff that's different for your palate. So we do a workshop that we call Taste the Rainbow for kids to encourage them not just to eat vegetables, but to eat different colors on their plates. And so we love to pull out the purple, the red dragon carrot or the Yellowstone carrot or the purple potato and things like that, just to show them that there's more color and variety than what they're used to, or having them eat a red burgundy okra. But then also showing with these different varieties the history of these seeds. So there's so much you can just do in a garden space that like you like okra. Any person of color should grow okra. Because that definitely connects us across the Middle Rights Passage and so forth.
So, Celeste, if somebody had a question, where you're located, you have yourself muted.
Oh, I'm sorry, baby. We're at 2217 Browns Mill Road, and we're out here every Wednesday from 9 to 1 for volunteers. And I usually bless somebody with some herbs, and the garden usually blesses people with vegetables. So they call it sweat equity, and I call it blessing those that bless us.
And you're in Atlanta,
Yes,
right? Because
30315.
yeah, I'm not really sure what part of the country that question came from. And we had another question that wanted to know where is everybody? So Browntown Farms is in Virginia. What part of Virginia is that, Herb?
We're in Warfield, Virginia. We're in the south side of Virginia. Our county borders the North Carolina line. We're an hour south of Richmond and about an hour and a half north of Raleigh, 2 hours west of Virginia Beach.
All right, all right. And from Fredo, where are you located? Where's your operation located?
Okay, I'm located in Albany, Georgia. It's in the southwestern part of the state of Georgia. We're about and probably about 45 minutes from like the Florida state line. Um, and yeah, we're some rural country boys.
Now I heard
We
you
got
say
shade.
that you were having problems. You needed because of the demand. There weren't a lot of you weren't able to hire enough people to work
Right,
with.
yeah, because it's just like what Herb talked about. Like, so a lot of what you do at farming, you're always crunching numbers. And so when you're looking at the fact that you got to just think about you having to do labor of harvesting a crop that you didn't anticipate that you got to have that labor force. And then the other thing that's uncertainty is like how, like Herb talked about, will this stay the same every year, right? Like you're just talking about temporary hires and like you just don't know like and so what we're trying to develop and we're really doing like a great job with the kids at the school because they was really starting to really become farmers and we were at the point about to develop a mobile farm stand for the kids to go out into the neighborhoods where they lived at. So we had like a lot of things on the table with Doherty County school system that were on the cusp of actually happening, but then COVID. And so, and then another thing too, I mean, anybody that works outside knows you bring a first timer to like the farm, and we have this thing here in Southwest Georgia. It's called a gnat. So it's like a little bug that it fly in your eye, your nose, and your ear. And so if people aren't acclimated to being outdoors, it ain't for everybody. Like you can find out like yesterday, a lady came out to the farm to the community garden, and she had perfume on. So the bugs were all over her, and she was just fanning away. And she was having a rough time. And we sit here, I'm enjoying it, but that's just like the acclimated. They're like the days where it rains and stuff like that. You have mud everywhere. So people are like, I don't messed up my New Balances. I don't messed up my Nikes and my Jordans. Man, you coming to the farm, you need to put on some brokeheads or some rain boots or something. Something.
So
This
Celeste,
ain't keeping up with the Kardashians.
Celeste, I know that y'all, with the COVID, did y'all have to shut down, or how did y'all? Who was managing the food for us while y'all, during the shutdown?
For 2 weeks, me. Yeah, and it was I even got kind of overwhelmed because I'm like, I can't stay in the house for 2 weeks. This is planting season. I got food to get in the ground just in case this thing gets crazy out here. So I guess I shouldn't say this on air, but I snuck out anyway, even when I was supposed to be quarantined and I was putting food in the ground.
Right. And what about you,
But I
Herb?
was being safe with it.
Okay. What about you, Herb? Did you all have to? I know, and I think this sheltering in place it looked a little differently between the city and in the rural areas. How did that affect your operation, Herb?
We never stop. We've been rolling. It's been every day. Strawberry season in particular is every single day. It's our busiest time of year. Like I said, we started on the 16th of April, and it's been every day since the 16th of April. There's always something to do. Of course, COVID-19 hit, and we were changing our business model just a little bit this year and kind of focus on growing fewer crops but at larger quantities from a management standpoint and the bottom line standpoint in order to keep us profitable. And COVID-19 hit, and we said, okay, well, there's a lot of produce needed, for people to eat locally. So we kind of shift gears a little bit. We still didn't go super, super heavy. with planning a whole lot of retail stuff, but we did shift gears and we would continuously plan. We never stop. I mean, it's we need to get caught up. I needed to stop raining a little bit so we can get caught up and we can get ahead.
Got you. Now, somebody had a question, and this is a good question that I want to ask each of you. Somebody, Monica Romano, she wanted to know will any of you be helped by the farming dollars in the latest COVID-19 bill, or is that mostly?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anybody?
That's a good
Well,
question, Monica. I would like to know too. We're kind of like the last ones to get help, so go figure. That's why it's time for us to unite as one and make sure we take care of our people, because they are not taking care of us in a very nice and loving way.
Herb, where you
well, so here in Virginia, the way the new bill is written, that if a vegetable farmer or a specialty crop grower lost production between January 15th and April 15th, you could be eligible for a payment because you lost your markets. Where we live in Virginia, we really don't sell a lot of produce between January in April, so we wouldn't be seeing anything on our farm from it, just because it's just the climate and the seasons of this Virginia area. So no, we won't be seeing anything on our farm in particular.
Okay, and so what about you, Farmer Fredo? Did your organization benefit from?
Well, I mean, um, uh, that's a loaded question. Um, and the reason being is that like we have like recently they did this Georgia grown thing in Atlanta, and so part of the produce and stuff, like we had some small farmers that supplied items that were included like in the box. And a part of the funding that they received was through the CARE Act, the COVID Recovery Act. But the drawback for us was that it was the funds were only allocated to populations that had over like 500 something thousand people in that county, right? And so we're in counties that have a population of like 150,000 or less, so we didn't qualify for those funds. But if those funds, so we benefited because we could shift stuff to Atlanta to be in these boxes to fill a void, but locally we couldn't receive it. And they're still like, hopefully with this new bill and things that come, that there'll be more allocated for like the small scaler producer and things like that. But then also, with the shift of like our school system, right? And so we could supply some stuff locally for our school system, but it wasn't necessarily like something that we could apply for. But because of the relationship with the schools and them still continuously feeding the kids, we could supply some sweet potato sticks, or we could supply some peaches, things like that indirectly. So it wasn't like somebody came through and said, "Hey, Fredo, COVID's here. Here's a check." Like American Clearinghouse. It wasn't like that, but just inadvertently, we had like little opportunities that we could still sustain ourselves. But one thing that did happen, and this is more about the community support, was that we received like an influx of donations from local businesses that wanted to get behind the work and stuff that we were doing, that really kind of helped offset some of our community-based project work. So it's like I said, it's not like, they didn't show up with a check, but there are different ways that farmers benefited from it, and they're still going to benefit, because as Herb talked about, their programs out there to support those that receive like a loss.
Right. That's interesting that you weren't able to really benefit from the COVID dollars, in that context, based on the population of that area, and especially by being Doherty County, then I'm expecting that, and given the special circumstances and how COVID-19 impacted Doherty County.
And close it with that, and that's what we're kind of just waiting for, because we knew like it was a hotbed with COVID nationwide. Our corner was on, Time Magazine, so we know there are going to be some resources and things that are going to come our way. But it's just like but like I said, it wasn't like somebody just showed up and was like here. But I gut feel is that in the future, the things that we're doing now will definitely be compensated for and help us expand our operation, help us expand our infrastructure, and help expand our input throughout Southwest Georgia. And like I said, these food cities with low access to fresh food. Because you look at obesity, heart disease, diabetes, you name it. I can just walk you through like towns through Southwest Georgia, where it's rapid. So.
Right. Well, this subject of food security is definitely a topic that we would talk a lot more on. Because now the dynamic is shifting just a little bit with the states easing their restrictions. And so it's going to be interesting to see how the food chain is impacted, whether it be because the numbers of confirmed cases increase or not. But we'll be having this conversation throughout the summer. And I'm prayerful that our unique farmers will join us, on the same night in June, July, and August, and we'll continue the conversation. Until then, I just want to close and give a special thanks to Truth to Public Radio, and I want to reflect on in closing the words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, that whatever affects one affects many in the long run. And so with that, we'll say good night, and I'll say thank you to everyone who has been a part of this, who have all of my viewers and the viewers that have, especially those that have given us some great questions tonight. And tune in on next Thursday at 6:30, and we'll be continuing our conversation, giving perspective on various social justice issues. Okay, thank you and good night.
Welcome to Perspectives On, where we're giving the world a voice. We are a faith-based social justice forum where individuals give their perspectives on various topics. It's an opportunity to express their viewpoint, their stance, and their angle on justice issues affecting the community and globally. Each episode features guests presenting their perspective on things like climate change, the church, urban farming, and food insecurity, all through a unique faith lens. Come check us out. Give us your perspective.